I love that story because every day that you wake up, you only got two things: chance and choices. And you made the choice to fucking turn it back on and be like, wait a second. Like, when you actually listen to your heart and your soul instead of just being a robot in the matrix, because there's a lot of bots that would not have listened to that and turned it off, and your whole life may have been different right there.
My whole life would have been very, very different, yeah.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Bridge Podcast. I am your host, Sean Nixon.
And I'm Jonathan Matthew.
New studio, new stuff. We took a little break as we were moving. Well, I was moving, and you get the whole studio to yourself now. And we're kicking off season 3 here, back in business. How you feeling,
baby? Good, man. Things are good.
I love it. I love it. Today we're coming to you guys with one of the old-time classic favorites. Honestly, I think you too. The first guy that got me into, through YouTube, deeper thinking and spirituality type of stuff. And it was one of those things where I just randomly stumbled upon him on YouTube, lectures and clips and YouTube videos and stuff. And it immediately resonated. Like, holy shit, this is deep, and I need to hear this, and I need to learn more. And then we were talking about the slippery rabbit hole that is Alan Watts.
Alan.
Watts. So what do you think about Alan Watts? Give us a little background history.
Yeah, so like when I first heard him, I was driving back from like work when I was living in California, and I got parked my car and I accidentally hit the AM button by accident, which like nobody ever listens to. I'm not nobody, but like who listens to AM radio? Accident, right? And I heard this guy's voice, and then I was like, I wasn't really paying attention. Then to turn off my car before I got out, I'm like, He had said a couple words, and I don't even know what he said, but it sounded interesting. Something's prompting me to turn the car back on and then go back, and I couldn't find it. Like, I had to go back and scroll through the AM thing to see which one it was. And I heard his voice, and if you ever heard Alan Watts' voice, it's very distinct.
It's unique.
It's very unique. There's part of his part of why it's captivating. He's a really good speaker. But yeah, then that got me down the rabbit hole. You go on YouTube and you're listening to.
Oh yeah, I love that story because every day that you wake up, you only got two things: chance and choices. And you made the choice to fucking turn it back on and be like, wait a second. Like, when you actually listen to your heart and your soul instead of just being a robot in the matrix, because there's a lot of bots that would not have listened to that and turned it off, and your whole life may have been different right there.
My whole life would have been very, very different, yeah.
And the thing about Alan Watts is everything is so spot on and so profound, but it's very zen as far as like it's a question on top of another question that leads you to another question that puts your brain in a pretzel. And just when you think you figured it out, here's another question.
Yeah, so I mean, he's famous for born in England, English, and he is famous for really bringing the teachings of like the Eastern philosophy, specifically Taoism, Zen Buddhism, and even some aspects of like Hinduism and yoga.
Yeah,
to
one
the
of
West.
the first.
Yeah.
I mean, Yogananda first, but like he was so magical, nobody really talks about him in the mainstream.
Yeah,
he was like on some Jesus shit, like doing miracles. And
he's very, very different. Yeah.
Super different. I'm just saying, like Eastern shit, bringing it West.
Yeah. And they were also very different in like how they spoke. And the one thing, like Alan Watts was also like a teacher and professor. This is like he's born 1915, January 6th. We share the same birthday. Not saying that I'm the reincarnated version of him, but I would not be surprised. No, I'm just kidding. But you never know. Not impossible. But yeah, then he moved to the U.S. and if you go online again, he had started to build up kind of like a cult following. Because this is also during the time when he has lots of teachings from when he was younger, and if you'll see some of those, but like he's most famous for when he had the the long beard, and that was more like around in like the 50s, 60s, and 70s when or 50s and 60s rather, when he was like when the world was kind of peak hippie-ish, peak Beatles, peak all that kind of conscious shifting going on.
LSD, man.
Yeah, and so and he's somebody who's very similar to Ram Dass, has done both paths. He's done like the plant medicine stuff, but he's also done the heavy level meditation. And
oh yeah, they go together. You can't just go fucking.
They go together, yeah. So, and he's also was good friends with Ram Dass, good friends with
Tim Leary,
all these a lot of these famous spiritual teachers that came from that era.
I love it.
Very, very influential. You can even
influential to the entire West and to you and I. So
and he's like pseudo mainstream now, like in a weird way, because like people are like using it because now like the world, and at least the first world, is like starting to shift a little bit in the conscious shift, and we're seeing that obviously with lots of people. But like he's being sampled in like EDM songs because he has like, again, like you said it perfectly, like if you listen to him versus like Ram Dass or McKenna or like Yogananda, like he is like, again, this is like the Zen Buddhism part and like the Taoism part. And if you know both of those things or you study those, they're very paradoxical. And he always makes a point to bring that into the forefront of how he speaks and like puts your mind in a knot, and that's
on purpose, like Zen koans and shit, where it's like a question and another question and another. Yeah, I always remember one of the first ones I heard was he was like, all suffering comes from desire. So what you have to do is give up your desires. And then it like pauses and you're like, okay, I'm understanding. And then he goes, but desiring not to desire is also desire. So now you're in a pickle. And I'm like,
he's like, well, now, like, well, now you're in a situation here where you can't stop desiring not to desire to desire. And it's just like,
desiring not to desire is also desire. So your suffering is inevitable and you're just sliding down the rabbit hole.
Scowl, stop it. God damn it.
So we brought up more than seven. I wrote down seven. You can throw something in of these quotes that we're going to take from back in, like you said, the 60s and 70s and apply them to today, and more importantly, interpret them. Because anytime you're looking at religion, spirituality, even scientific data, you're just interpreting it. You know what I'm saying? So we're going to give our interpretations. So we're going to start off with a juicy one, and then I like the order that we're flowing in. So the first one I got is trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth.
Ooh.
So to me, that is just, this is the first one where there's some contradiction in my mind, and you're going to help me unpretzel this one, because to me, I'm the only one that defines me. I don't like other people's definitions of myself or success or what I'm supposed to do. But basically what he is trying to say is your representation of God in this dimension is like, you can only look out your eyes. You know what I'm saying? You can't look towards yourself without a mirror. So then once again, we're in this paradoxical pretzel of trying to see yourself and define yourself. But what does this one mean to you?
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like in a scientific experiment, like say you're a scientist and you set up an experiment and you observe what happens and you write that down. So you'll say, well, this is my results from this experiment, or what is. But, and there's a couple different like psychological
layers to. Yeah, that's why they do blind and double blind.
Yeah, but what you can never do is you can't take out the impact of the observer on the study, right? And that's, I think, kind of what it's getting at. It's like trying to define yourself as like biting your own teeth. It's like you have teeth, or you are teeth, right? Like, are they my teeth, or are they just teeth? So it's like you're trying to make them mine and what they are, but they just are, and there's no way to escape. There's no way to well, as soon as you try to define it, you create that separation, right? So it just kind of is, and so that's
exactly what it is separation, because it shows that you are not your body.
Yeah, because in order to define something, you have to be separate from it, right? And so it's just like that's where it gets you, It's like,
exactly. Like you said, it's my teeth, my hand.
Yeah.
Like it's separate from you. You possess it and you control it.
Yeah. but at the
It's
same
not
time, you
you.
are it.
Right.
Yeah.
At the same time.
So yeah, I like to. There's a specific lecture where he mentions this too. I like how they used to do it in the side note, like in the old school lectures, they would just kind of like he would just be like in a garden somewhere, it's like walking around and talking,
Oh,
like
yeah.
because they didn't have any like special effects or like panning
Love
and
it.
all this nonsense.
Better.
But he never like was trying to convince you to think one way or the other. He was just really prompting you with these paradoxes to get you to think more critically in yourself, which I think is really important, especially when you're trying to with this stuff. Because it's easy to because you can never really tell somebody what the answer is, and that's not what a goal of a Zen teacher specifically is, right? The teacher doesn't tell you where to go or what the answer is, right? He can help you, show you the way, and
Or ask more questions. And instead
yeah,
of
and that's
telling you
what he
what to
was.
think, teaching
Yeah,
you how to think.
and the only way you can like untie a knot is if you're presented with a knot to untie, right? And so he provides those knots to untie and explore with, right? And this is definitely one of those that hits that on the head.
Love it. So next one, muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone. And this one's huge to me because so many times you get in this go, go, go frantic mindset and it's like you think you need to do more, do more, do more. And this one to me is summed up with do less. A lot of times if you just meditate and take 10 deep breaths, the answer will show itself to you. If there's a problem, instead of looking for more problems, you do less and let the muddy water clear, and a solution comes to you. So adding more stress and anxiety to a situation is not always the best way to solve a problem, and the muddy water will settle itself when you settle the mind. That's what I'm getting from this one. But isn't this one a little bit more literal? Like he told the story of Buddha coming up on a lake and shit?
Yeah, this is a Buddhist story. It's like Buddha and his followers were like traveling along, and like they weren't people who had tons of stuff they were carrying with them. Like they weren't carrying like a pack of smart waters in the cooler, and they were just going around. So like they came to this lake, and there was a bunch of other people at the lake, or even like animals in going through the lake. And so there was just the water was just kicked up with mud because it was just agitated. The water was stirred up. So they had no water and they were thirsty, and like it's not as simple to get water back in the day, especially when you're just traveling around. Like that's why people build places near water and rivers and streams, because water is really important, guys.
Super necessary.
And so one of his disciples was like kind of freaking out because like Buddha asked him to go fetch some water. He's like, the water's full of mud. And Buddha's just like, what do we do? And he's like, just wait, just wait. And they did wait, and that took patience, right? Even with your thirst. But you go back, and now we have the mud settled, the water became clear, and we were getting water instead of muddy water. But yeah, you nailed it on the head with it being a direct metaphor or allegory for the mind. Mind gets stirred up, right? That monkey mind gets stirred up, and we start to think more thoughts. We'll get to it. We'll say, here's an example. Like, say you drop your pair of sunglasses in the lake, right? And then you just rifling through the water to look for it. Does that make the water? Is it make it easier to find, or just clouds things up? If you let it settle, you can see like, oh, there they are. So yeah, like you said, it's really just being patient, and the more is not always more. Like that's the big tenet of yoga is just allowing the mind to settle, right? Because like especially in those first few minutes, like think of the first time you meditated in those like the 10-minute meditation, like
every time
it was muddy the whole time. Like it was muddy the whole time. You're like, well, it's not working, right? That's where people get that's not working thing. It's like, well, my water's still muddy. It's like, well,
let it settle.
Yeah,
that's it. That's what we're here for. No, I love that. As far as patience, just if we were to sum it up in one word, that is something that everybody can learn from for sure. So moving on to the next one is one of my favorites. I probably say that every time, but this one's a big one. When you get stuck, this one really keeps me going. Man suffers because he takes seriously what the gods made for fun. So I'm always talking about this is a fucking game, guys. It's a show. People always come to you and they're like, oh my God, did you see this in the news? And they send you this link and it's, oh my God, this is happening. And I just send the fucking popcorn emoji back because I'm enjoying the show. And I know that the gods have made this game to learn lessons, okay? So I also know, more importantly, that this is a war on consciousness of your soul, right? So the powers that be feed off of negative energy. So they're always going to push you into fear, guilt, and shame. So I'm not taking the bait anymore. So when things get all serious and you're all panicked and you're all in fear, I remember everything is a test and this is a game and I'm having fun here in this human experience, learning lessons and doing all the physical experiences and trials and tribulations, trying to have as much fun as I can along the way.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, the word, and he even defines this again in another lecture, when it says like it can, like a game, right? So some people will interpret that as meaning like life is like a trivial, like you shouldn't care or it's just like nonsense. And that's not the point of it. He means it's in a game in terms of like an illusory sense. Like it's not what you think it is. Right.
Yeah.
And the only reason people have fear is because they are attached to their body, attached to their experience, attached to their identity, right? And there's that fear of losing it, which is the fear of death. And like Ram Dass says, death is completely safe, right?
Yeah. Maya, the grand illusion. Once you know that it's a matrix and it's all set up with trapdoors to trip you up, laughing at it keeps you going forward and keeps your vibration high. And you realize, oh, that was a little trick. Oh, that was pre-programmed things, or that was a deep programmed groove that I made through habits, and I can pause and stop, and then I always laugh and kind of do like a mini celebration when I catch myself not falling on bad habits and correcting patterns.
Yeah, it's also kind of like, it kind of ties into that last quote too, like taking things too seriously. Again, not that there's not like chaos, not that there's not pain and suffering in the world, not that we shouldn't attend to that, but how is anxiousness, how is muddying the water actually going to help, right? How is being overly worried going to help? It usually never does. And that's also another one of his quotes too. No, I'm not going to jump in ahead here, but like no amount of worry ever changed anything that ever happened, right? If anything, it probably gets worse,
Way worse. And like you said, I love how you covered that there is real suffering in the world. Bad things do happen, there's trauma and there's tragedy and there's suffering, for sure. But a samurai warrior, a fucking Navy SEAL, a Green Beret Marine, they're calm. They know that all this extra anxiety is not going to help. And that is the top level of, heightened emotions and anxiety, but more importantly, adrenaline in life or death situations. And they are trained to keep it cool because they know everything is emotion and it's not going to help you.
And it also relates to, I'm kind of thrown in other quotes here too from him, but He has one quote on writing where, it says like a specific phrase, and I don't remember the larger quote, but it was hold the pen loosely, right? And so that means kind of a keep a loose attachment to things, right? Hyper grip on something is, again, like anxiousness, it's stiffness. You're not going to be able to draw smoothly or write as smoothly or efficiently, right? Holding it loosely, hold your experience loosely, right? Because in that way, when things become too tense, you can be loose when things are tense, right?
Yeah, don't take life too seriously. Love that one. Next one, the real secret to life is to be completely engaged in the here and now. Instead of calling it work, realize that it's play. All right, so I love this one. Completely engaged in the here and now is literally just being present. Right? But then the next half of this is exactly what I was saying before about anytime you get anxious or depressed and caught up in all the fear and all the drama, 99% of it is manufactured from the powers that be to keep you down, or from your own fucking monkey mind and your ego just to trip you up, because that's just how, we're humans. That's just what happens. All right. Yeah. So instead of calling it work, realize it's play, man. And then this one you can unpack and dissect in a bunch of different ways, because once again, if you're working, to be specific with work, a job that you hate just to pay the bills, then you're not living life. When you find play and purpose in work every single day, not only does the days and the weeks flow by smoothly, but then that keeps your vibration high too. So you're not just working for the weekend and a slave to the man, because the matrix is set up where this entire planet, we're all slaves. So you're either conscious of it or unconscious of it. And if you're conscious of it, like we talked about, you can play the games within the matrix and your mind is free. You're not just unconsciously fucking, like I said, working for the weekend and paying taxes and bills for no reason and hating life every single day. I think the stat is 85% of people either hate or just okay with their job, their career.
Yeah. And like, I don't even, and, there's like kind of this unrealistic push from social media where everybody needs to become like a influencer that travels the world all the time and post millions of pictures and take, you know, yacht trips and all the time. Like that's not realistic for everybody. Like there's people who will never make money more than $3,000 a year. That's just the reality of it.
Yeah.
And that, and so that our definition of happiness, I think from this is not to be defined by what the work is, but just how we interact with what our experience is, right? Like you could live your whole life as a low level job and be happy the whole time, right? Because you understand that you are not your role in this world. You are not your identity that's created by society. You are just like how, and really important for younger people too, when they start getting entry level jobs, like, this is not what I want to do. It's like, well, it's not about what you want to do. It's like, how are you in this situation? Like you can
how you do it.
You can be that, like apathetic, annoyed, fast food worker, or you can be the guy that helps make people laugh or smile or have a conversation, and that's going to benefit you, right?
That's huge. That benefits everybody, especially yourself in the long term. How you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you think you're going to be a personal trainer and it sucks because you're going to go to med school and be a fucking PA or some kind of doctor or something, but you're going to be a shitty trainer because you think it's stupid and you're going to have a great job, or like I said, fast food, if you're just moping through the day because you think the job is stupid versus, like you said, telling jokes, having conversations, making people's days, it's a lot different. And I'll tell a Martin Luther King quote because he's one of my favorites as well. It said, if God calls upon you to be a street sweeper, sweep the streets like a motherfucker. If that's what your calling is or called upon to do, and that's what your role is, you're not defined by your role, but you can be defined by your effort, your attitude, and your enthusiasm towards that.
Yeah, and it reminds me of Bruce Almighty when he goes to ask Morgan Freeman for help when he realizes God, and Morgan Freeman has him mop the entire building, cleaned up the entire building. And like somebody, an average person, I don't want to define anybody else's how they would perceive things, but a typical reaction to that would be like, that's a meaningless work. It's work that I don't like to do. It's busy work, stuff that you would resent, right? But it's not about what you're doing. It's about what you can get out of it, right? And how you can experience it.
Because a lot of times you can't control the outside circumstances, but you can always control, like I said, your attitude, your effort, and your enthusiasm, and your state of being. Nobody else is in control of your state of being. Reminds me of my first job that was kind of a low-level job that rose up the ranks. And that's, by the way, that's how you rise up the ranks, like you were saying, to newer employees and young people and stuff like that. Don't think your job sucks and then you're going to get promoted to manager and shit if you're acting like it sucks.
Yeah.
Take charge, come in every single day, raise the vibration of the room, and do your best every single time. Reminds me of my first job, first a full-time job, legit job when I was like 18. It was for the U.S. Water Treatment Company. And first day, I get in the truck with the manager. Tom Evergan was his name. Great guy. I learned so much from him. And the first day, he pulls around the corner, puts the truck in park, and pulls out a pipe. And he goes, do you smoke weed? And I go, doesn't everybody? And then boom, first fucking 8 o'clock in the morning. We're smoking, hanging out, telling jokes, reading the newspaper, listening to fucking sports radios, listening to music, telling stories, telling jokes. And the day flies by that way. Furthermore, we were on service calls and stuff where people would call and they would say their water was like brown and muggy or their water wasn't working at all or whatever. And he would go, time, instead of being like, oh, we're plumbers, this job sucks or whatever. He would go, time to fucking kick ass. He would go, time to snap into action. He goes, Team USA. Because it was the U.S. Water Treatment Company. So we had like American flag shirts. It's a U.S. Water Co. and shit. And he was like, Team USA. We did it like the Olympics. He was like, now up for Team USA. And we would go in, do a great job, and you had gratitude for helping someone. Like you went there and their water didn't work, and then you left and they thanked you and their water worked. Like that's an energetic exchange that you just helped someone. It doesn't matter that you're a fucking plumber making $25 an hour. Like we helped people, and that was our perception shift that helped out the day.
Yeah, that's what it is, a perception shift. Yeah.
I see. I love it. So the next one, we're getting a little deeper here. A scholar tries to learn something new every day. A student of Buddhism tries to unlearn something every day. So this one's fantastic because of the unlearning is the biggest thing we can do now as awake and aware human beings in this experience on Earth, specifically now. Unlearning and unfucking and deconditioning the programming that you've been given. So once you realize that you've been poisoned, lied to, and programmed since birth, you can either cry about it, or you can say, okay, this is awesome. This is a war. I'm no longer going to be a victim. I'm going to be a warrior, because we're at war now with the powers that be. So what can I do? I can take more time to research how I can filter my water, get healthy food, exercise, read things that aren't in schools, indoctrination programs, and stuff like that. Unlearning the bullshit that they've taught you in school. Doesn't mean that teachers are bad. It doesn't mean that doctors are bad. It just means the system is corrupt. And even if you don't know all that, you have to understand that the end of book learning in school and education and academia is not all the knowledge in the world. You should constantly be learning.
Yeah, and it's like literally everything you know right now has been told to you by somebody.
That's it.
Well, almost all of it, right? Besides anything that comes genuinely internally. And so just because someone tells it to you doesn't mean it's necessarily true, right? And just because, you know, you are, the biggest one is like identity, I think, because you're given an identity from even just your name. Like your parents aren't trying to, you know, corrupt you evilly by giving you the name Jonathan. That's just like what we do. We just name people things, right? That's just like how it's a marker of identity. But even just that, you know, in subtly without even wanting to, creates this separation, right? And your nationality and your religion, and there's so many more layers just stacked on top of it. So it's really like unlearning really is, I think, also kind of like unmuddying the water in that same way, just like seeing more clearly what's at the actual bottom. And
doing the inner work and finding out who you really are.
And like that doesn't mean, and he said the quote to make a point. Doesn't mean you shouldn't learn anything every day.
That's the thing. Because I think you should do both, to be honest. If we're going to break down the literal words to it, I think you should learn something every day, because when you stop learning, you stop living. Like learning and laughing, you got to do that every fucking day. And then, but also unlearn, because that's part, and sometimes they're one and the same. You learn that something was bullshit programming that you or the TV or school or your parents or the church or whomever gave to you that wasn't necessarily true, and then you learn some new shit.
Yeah, and it's a constant thing to unlearn, like every day is what, you know, I said that because whether you realize it or not, your brain is making patterns out of things every single day, right? Yeah. And so unless you're highly, perfectly 100% conscious for 24 hours of your experience, there's going to be stuff that gets programmed, and you're going to have to spend time with yourself doing some self-work, becoming aware of that, right? And that's practice meditation. That's what journaling is for. That's what talking to other people who are close with you are for. Like that's what all that's for, is to help you see yourself and be like, why am I doing that? It's because of this. It's because of this. I can break that apart. You know, I can rip that apart.
Do these old patterns serve me? Maybe not. And just always asking questions. I love that.
Yeah.
Next one, technology is destructive only in the hands of people that do not realize they are one and the same as the universe. Ooh. So this one is huge. So I can go two ways with this one. First of all, it's like though we are all God, as far as God is inside us, the universe is inside us. We are a part of the universe, separated just to experience itself in different forms, doing different things or whatever. And then the technology, like Prince said, back in the 90s, he was like, it's cool to get on the computer, but don't let the computer get on you. You know what I'm saying? Use the technology. Don't let the technology use you. And then if we want to take it another way, we can go back to the war metaphor of the AI technology that big tech and billionaires are trying to get us into, as far as the Great Reset and Agenda 2030 and fucking transhumanism and shit like that. Like, using technology is fantastic. Plugging technology into your body and getting away from God and nature is no good.
Yeah. Again, it's just technology is a tool, right? And it's kind of outgrown our ability to reconnect. I say reconnect to like our authentic self versus, and so we end up with that empty space that we have. We connect to our technology instead of connecting to ourselves. It's a healthy balance, because we're doing this right now with tech. You know, it's just all technology that's allowing this to happen, right? But at the same time, I'm not identifying with it. I'm not letting it consume me, because it very well can. And that's part of the unlearning, right? Like it's when you're caught on the Instagram infinite scroll of reels and TikTok and all that stuff. Like that's all programming that's happening to your brain, whether you want it to or not. Like that's just how your brain works. Like that's just the computer.
Yep.
Your brain is a computer. Your brain is technology, right? At that,
Yep.
if we're comparing that. So,
Yep.
In that same
That's
way,
one.
everything's getting downloaded and everything can be programmed. Everything can be unprogrammed. Everything can be deleted. And, there's
Yeah.
lots of ways to operate it, but you got to become aware of it.
That's one of my favorite Rudolf Steiner quotes. It says, man will continue to invent technologies outside of himself until he realizes that all those technologies are lesser versions of technologies we have within ourselves, or until we destroy ourselves and the planet. So basically, like you said, the technology is just a tool that enhances some of the things. We haven't evolved and ascended yet to communicate telepathically, but that doesn't mean that it's not possible. It means it's not where we're at currently, so we're using the internet to connect. The same way, and you're like, that sounds crazy. The same way you can go back millions of years before that, before there was spoken language, and we would communicate with hand signals and a lot of monkey see, monkey do type of shit, and cave drawings and hieroglyphs and calligraphy and stuff like that.
Symbols.
Because they're symbols and signs and logos, right? But then you got verbal communication, and then you had pictures, movie, radio, the internet, whatever. And then the next stage is either tapping into internal telepathic powers and other powers, or going more transhumanism and fucking Elon Musk putting a chip in your fucking head and shit. We are the universe and we are nature.
Yeah.
Super important. And so to give practical take-home advice of how we do that, like yesterday I shut off my phone for almost 24 hours. Every single day I get my feet in the dirt or in the sand or in the ocean as far as grounding away from stuff. I do yoga, meditation, and Tai Chi with my phone away from me and away from EMFs with my feet on the ground. So basically is I plan in inner work and nature and deprogramming and unlearning the same way that we plan in that we're going to use Instagram, we're going to use Zoom and fucking Snapchat and Wi-Fi and all these things. So it's a balance, like everything else, of working out to rest and recovery, technology to earthing and grounding in nature.
Yeah, and most of technology is stimulating. So like in that balance, stimulation and then like destimulation, right?
Yeah.
That's whether you know it or not, like absorption technology is responsible for a lot of fatigue, like mental fatigue.
Big time.
Most of the physical fatigue you feel, and you didn't realize you did. You say you did nothing that day. Is you didn't do nothing. You were on your computer, you were on your phone, you were all the stuff, and that's all draining. That's all stimulating, right?
Yeah, it really is.
Literally on a neurological level, like physiological, stimulating yourself. So balancing that out, like a period of stimulation will then take a break, disconnect from stimulate because you have to. We got to go to work, right? You need to Zoom, whoever it is, then destimulate. Mm-hmm. So build those in. Yeah.
Build it in. Okay, last one that I have, I just want to add. The only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it, move with it, and join the dance. This one is so important for what's going on right now because nothing is ever going to be the same. Anytime someone says the new normal or going back to normal or do this to get your freedoms back and go back to normal, they're either full of shit and misleading you or they're brainwashed. And that's okay because you ignore all that nonsense. And the only way to make sense out of change is to join the dance and go with it. New Earth means letting go of old bullshit, your old BS, your old belief systems, and all the old stuff. Holding on to attachment is going to not let you transcend and ascend to the next levels that we're going to. There is no more new normal. None of that shit is even real, okay? Joining the dance means you take a step and the universe takes a step. You take a step and God takes a step. You're not doing all the stepping and stepping on her toes and shit like that. You know what I mean? It's one and one. It's step forward, yield and surrender, step forward, yield and surrender. And that is the dance. So instead of resisting change and holding on and just getting blasted with the waves because you're holding on to a rock because you think the old way is the only way to survive, let go and go with the flow.
Yeah, they're like everything is in a constant state of change. Normal is just like an idea, right? And we get used to normal. Normal just means things that have stayed the same.
Yeah.
Things that the status quo is what normal means. Doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily mean it's right or wrong. It's just that's what is, right? And that's what we project as. But yeah, like the join and the dance part, like that's for me at least, part of that I feel like is again surrender to things beyond your control. We've mentioned like the universe is inside you, and as connected as we are to the universe, it's still beyond our normal human perception, and that's what I think the join is like don't resist, like you are part of something bigger, whether you can see it or not. So just entirely surrender to it, whatever that may be, and that may not seem like the right thing in the moment. It may seem like the right thing in the moment. Things may seem wrong in the moment, or they may seem
that's all judgments,
and that's all really short human perspective, right? We are so limited. We think that like our 70, 80, 90 years on life are like a reflection of the entire scope of whatever's happening or has happened. It's not.
Drop in the ocean. I love how you said the only thing that's constant is change. The only things that are inevitable in life is change and death. And when you realize death is just a change in and of itself, and that's all there is change. So you got to embrace it, plunge into it, move with it, and join the dance. And that's going to get rid of so much anxiety and, like I said, holding on to old attachments that are keeping people back. Oh, my cousin, my mom, my whoever took the juice, and no. It's like you're holding yourself back. Don't let other attachments hold you back. Just move forward. You can still love them and have compassion for them. You don't have to judge them because you think the news is saying that they're judging you. Most people don't give a shit. Don't hold on to the old stuff. Join the dance. And change could be anything. Moving, a new job, a new relationship, anything. You can't hold on to old stuff. You got to try the new dance.
Yeah, and everybody's doing the dance, especially the people who you think are opposed to or the enemy, right? Like they're all the universe too, and they're all doing the dance too. And they're maybe moving in a way that you don't think is right, but you're not the one who orchestrated the dance. The universe is, right? Your ego is, rather, I should say, right? It's all happening. So
it's all happening.
It's kind of like
any other.
One I do like is Zen does not confuse spirituality with thinking about God while one is peeling potatoes. Zen spirituality is just to peel the potatoes, right? And so that's a really important one, I think, especially for people who are like in the spiritual space or philosophical space, because you can get into too much. I see a lot of like debates on the internet of like what's the right spirituality, and like you're missing not that you can't, not that there's not a point to philosophizing it, but don't think it's anything more than that. Don't believe that that's the answer. It's just being and doing. Like Thich Nhat Hanh has a really good way. A couple quotes I don't remember, but he has a really good way of saying it. His big one is like wash the dishes. Don't meditate while washing the dishes. You're just washing the dishes.
You can only ever wash one dish at a time.
Yeah.
You didn't do the dishes yesterday. You're not doing all the dishes. You're doing one dish.
Yeah.
And that way you're not, oh my God, I have all these things to do that I don't even want. And then I got to do the next thing. And then I'm going to be late for this. And then I'm going to be behind on work because I have to do the dishes. You're present in the moment, washing one dish. That's it.
Yeah. Be with that one dish, right? Because it relates back to, like the job where you think you don't like it because you think it's meaningless or whatever. It's like, it's not about what the job is or what you can get from it. It's about being with it. Because eventually being with that dish is being with someone you care about. And if you can't be with that dish, how can you really be present with somebody you care about? How can you really be present for that success that you're going to have when you get there? If you're constantly on the next dish.
It's all a test. And the test is to be in the present moment. Learn from the past.
Peel those potatoes. Peeling the potatoes is it.
I love potatoes, especially if you're going to make French fries with them.
Oh, yeah. Something about fried potatoes, man.
So good. You got any more Alan Watts for us?
The last one is a really, really good one. It's a bigger quote, but I'm just going to read the short part. All right, now here is a solar system inside a galaxy, and one of the peculiarities of the solar system is that at least on the planet Earth, the thing peoples, just the same way that an apple tree apples. And so what that means is apples come out of an apple tree. Like that's what an apple tree does. It creates apples in the same way the Earth creates people, creates life in that same way.
Life.
And so that reinforces the connection to Earth, reinforces that we don't come into this world, we come out of it.
We are of this world.
Big distinction.
Yeah, because Earth is a living being, And people are making technology. So the same way that bees make beehives and ants make anthills, people make technology and people make other people. It's just creation in this earth plane that, like I said, is a living being.
Yeah, you are, just imagine like you are a cell, a single cell of a larger organism, right?
Bro, I imagine that all the time, and that's very plausible that that's even true. You know what I mean? That you are God to yourselves, and that you are a cell of a larger being, like a multiverse layered.
Because it already is kind of like that, right? Because you have cells in your body, and you are a tiny little blip on that makes up planet Earth, that contributes to it, and planet Earth is a tiny blip that makes up the Milky Way, that makes up infinite.
Yeah, galaxies and universes and everything else. So that is super legit as a metaphor and plausible as reality. So either way, go with it as far as just something to chew on and think about, and know that you're only in control of this, not the whole thing. So that shows the yin and yang also of surrendering to God and nature and the universe, but taking personal responsibility for what you can control and being empowered by that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Balance, my friends. All right, so leave your favorite Alan Watts quote in the comments, or any quote you want, and we'll dissect it and we'll share it and we'll talk about it. And we're going to be back next time, ladies and gentlemen. Peace.
Deuces.